Welcome to another episode of the You're So Quiet podcast. As always, I'm your host, Chelsea Brown. If you are on YouTube and you're like, wait a second, why am I not seeing your face? It's because this week has been quite a week. Maybe you can hear it in my voice, but I've been kind of under the weather. It's all fine, you just don't get to see my face this week. When this releases, this will be the week of Thanksgiving in the United States, and I thought it would be a good time to talk about how to stay grateful even in the face of adversity or if things aren't really going your way. I think it's especially important to think about this as we move into Thanksgiving because I feel like a lot of times the holidays in particular are really difficult from a mental health perspective. We see people spending time with family and maybe we're not close to our family or our friends, or maybe we have to work or whatever. So I think that this is a really important topic for this time of year. But before we get into that, of course, I do need to get into what I have been consuming. I have read a ton of books, and if you want to hear about them and hear about my reviews, keep listening. But if you would prefer to just jump to the meat of the episode, I'll put a link in the show notes or in the description below. So, first I read The Guest List by Lucy Foley. The Guest List is a novel basically about a wedding party, and all the people are different narrators in the story, and the wedding is held in a remote location, and it kind of starts with a murder. So someone has been killed, but you don't know who it is and you don't know who the murderer is. So you kind of spend the whole book getting into people's stories and finding out who is the murderer and who was killed. I thought The Guest List was fantastic. I listened to it on audiobook and I blew through it in like 2 days. I would highly recommend that one. At the end of The Guest List, there was a sample of The Hunting Party, also by Lucy Foley, and I listened to the sample. It intrigued me enough, so I got it on audiobook as well. The Hunting Party is the same format as The Guest List, only it's people who are kind of on a birthday getaway, and it's a group of friends getting together. The same kind of formula. It starts with a murder. You don't know who the murderer is. You don't know who the person who was killed is. And if you read them back to back, for me, I was pretty disappointed because I was hoping for something a little bit different. But it was kind of the same plot, but with different characters and a different setting. So for me, that one was a miss. If you're going to read one of the two, I personally would recommend The Guest List. I thought the characters were much more compelling than in The Hunting Party. I also finished The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. After reading the book, I can see how the Netflix series was adapted, but it's also very different. That being said, I think that the book is definitely a good read for fans of horror, and it really gets into the kind of psychological implication of haunted houses. So that one was a really good one as well. I also read 5 Total Strangers by Natalie D. Richards. 5 Total Strangers is basically about a girl who is on an airplane that lands. All of the planes are grounded because of a blizzard, and instead of just waiting in the airport or in a hotel for planes to start running again, she decides to get in a car with 4 other strangers, and they agree to drive her to her destination. So already that kind of sounds like a problem and not like something that I would ever in life do. I am a very fearful, mistrustful person, so the odds of me getting into a car with people I don't know who promise to drive me somewhere is absolutely 0. Unless, of course, it's like an Uber, right? Completely different situation. The book was very interesting. I plowed through it in maybe 3 days. It was very compelling. The cliffhangers on the end of each chapter were enough to keep me turning the page, and the little reveals of the main character were also very interesting. I love a good character-driven drama, and that's basically what this was. I also liked learning a little bit more about what these other characters were all about, and I thought it was a great book. The ending I thought was also great. Kind of expected, I think. It kind of wrapped up how I expected it to, but not really in a disappointing kind of way. I also read Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. This book is a big trigger warning if you are sensitive to abusive relationships, emotional abuse, physical abuse, people who are borderline psychopathic. This is definitely not going to be the book for you. I'm personally not sensitive to those things when I'm reading, so it didn't bother me, although I will say that there are several scenes that were very, very shocking to me. Like, I could not believe that actually happened. This book was something that will keep you up late into the night. It's something that I listen to my audiobooks only when I'm walking my dog or when I'm cooking or doing dishes or something mundane. But I found myself listening to this throughout the day, trying to get to the end, and the ending was so satisfying. So even if you get kind of hung up in the middle, which I personally don't foresee, I didn't feel any lull in the action. But if you do get caught up, just know that the ending will be such a satisfying ending. I'm not going to give it away because it was so good, but it was just like chef's kiss, amazing. I love it. So those 5 books over the last 2 weeks have all been actually quite good books, except for The Hunting Party. Kind of disappointing that it was basically the same thing as The Guest List. So I think I would leave that one, but the other 4 I would highly recommend, especially if you're into mysteries or thrillers or horror. I think all of those would really satisfy you. As for TV shows, you know I love reality TV, and I mean, that's not going to change, sorry. I'm watching Bachelor in Paradise, like from the first season, and I'll tell you, man, they come out with the drama in seasons 1 and 2. It's like, it makes me tired. There's so much drama, and I mean, I can barely look away, but at some point, I'm like, okay, I can't watch this anymore. I need like a palate cleanser. You know what I mean? I still like the Bachelor franchise. I know it has 0 like cinematic value, but I still like it nonetheless. I am also watching, as far as reality TV, it's called Love Never Lies, but it is a Spanish reality show that's been dubbed into English. And this is a reality show like I've not seen before. It's when couples come in and these couples are clearly having problems. Maybe they have trust issues or one of them is cheated or whatever, and this is supposed to help them determine if they want to make the relationship work or if they're going to decide to just part and go their separate ways. And if they decide to go their separate ways, they're actually off the show. So this show, I mean, the way that it's edited is very sneaky because it makes you want to watch the next episode. They cut it off at just that right point to where you're like, okay, so I guess I'm here for another 40 minutes trying to figure out what's happening to this couple. So I think that's a really good one if you're looking for a new reality type TV. It feels kind of like The Circle. It has that same kind of vibe, even though it's a completely different kind of show. I did start Made on Netflix. It's about a girl who was in an abusive relationship, and she takes her daughter and tries to leave this guy, and he's using everything in his power to kind of bring her back to him. And I think that the show is very compelling, but it's also not something that I'm like dying to watch because it is kind of hard to watch. I think it's one thing to like read about abusive relationships, and it's something completely different to watch it. It's kind of hard to see. I think the actress is doing a great job, but I've only actually watched like 3 episodes. I am also watching You Season 3 on Netflix. I think Season 3 is not as good as Seasons 1 and 2. It's it seems a little bit ridiculous at points. The two main characters have killed like 4 people at this point, and I'm just so confused about how they're getting away with it like it's nothing. So it's starting to get a little bit obnoxious. So that one, I'm not sure I would recommend it. If you liked the first 2 seasons and you just want to see how it's going to go, maybe go for it. I did see that it is renewed for a 4th season, so maybe season 3 picks up, but at this point, I kind of am just over it. Like, they're married and they're not really into each other anymore, but they're only into each other when they're killing people. Like, it's something else. So yeah, for me, kind of lost it there for me. So all of that being said, and I'm sorry if my voice is like not working out for you, it's not great for me either, but we are actually going to try to stay grateful in this situation. I am healthy, I am able to take care of my body, and I'm able to put this podcast out for you. So we're going to talk about gratitude and staying grateful right after this. Okay, welcome back. I really wanted to talk about this because I know for me, especially during holiday season when I was younger, holiday seasons used to be really tough, especially from a depression perspective, because when it starts to get dark and it seems like there's more darkness than light, like physically during the day, I start to be affected by that. And I've heard it called seasonal affective disorder. I've never been diagnosed with this, so I don't want to like claim it, but I will say that less sunlight makes me feel worse. And I think it's interesting that all of our holidays are when we have the least amount of sun. So I always try to change my perspective during this time and give myself a little bit of extra self-care. So I have been going for a run almost every night with my dog, which really, really helps with my mood. But I do think that changing your perspective and trying to see the good instead of the bad and staying grateful, making gratitude your goal, I think that's really going to help as we move into these darker months. So I have 5 points to talk about today. The first is to focus on the good and don't glorify the bad. I think, especially for me, I'm a very pessimistic person, I'll be honest with you. I tend to focus on all of the bad things that have happened and kind of forget about the good. And I think for me, this is like a defense mechanism almost, because if I'm focusing on the bad stuff, like when good things happen, it's great, but when bad things happen, I'm protected, right? Because I already expected it to come. But the problem is with that is that I'm not allowing these good things in my life to give me that positivity that I really do need. Because being pessimistic all the time, I'll tell you, man, it is exhausting. So I really do try to focus on all the good things that happen, right? Or the good aspect of a situation. For example, one of my really close friends died just this year. My best friend died 3 years ago. And I think it would be really easy for me to focus on the fact that 2 of my very close friends died within 5 years of each other, and that's hard for me to accept because I think it's very difficult for me to open up to people in the first place. And so people that I actually trust, like literally being removed from the earth, it's really hard for me. But I think changing my perspective and thinking like, okay, so they're gone, true, but I was gifted all of this time with them. I got to go to Seattle and spend time with Abel. I got to go to Ohio and spend time with Maddie. So I need to remind myself that all this time that I had with these people is a gift, regardless of how I feel now. And sadness is difficult and grief is difficult. But as the old saying goes, it's better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all, right? So anything that's happening in your life that you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening, like try to find that one sliver of goodness, because I guarantee that that sliver of goodness is in there. I guarantee it. You might have to squint a little to see it, but I promise you that it is there, okay? My second point is to just say thank you. I think that this is something we kind of forget to do. Like, we just expect things to happen for us, and when they don't happen, we're upset. But when they do happen, we're just like, okay, like that's what was supposed to happen. So replace your expectation with appreciation. And I think that that goes for ourselves personally. I was reading the other day, and this article said something like, when was the last time that you thanked yourself? And I thought that was a really interesting thought, because I literally think that I have never taken the time to thank myself, right? My body is very healthy for the most part, and it has got me to this point in my life. So how can I just expect it to keep going and keep going without like taking time to appreciate what I already do have? I think if you appreciate what you already have, you're more likely to be happy with it. Because if we're just expecting to get more and get more and get more and never just take time to appreciate, then we're never going to just be happy. You need to ask yourself what happiness looks like for you. And are you genuinely happy? And if the answer is no, why is that? Is there something physically in your life that you're missing? Or is it that you have all this love and all this security around you, but you're not taking that time to say thank you to the people around you that you love, to say thank you to yourself for getting you this far, to say thank you to your parents maybe for having raised you into the person that you've become? Whatever the case may be, I think it's very important to say thank you to yourself and to other people. I have been dealing a lot with customer service people lately. I've kind of had some issues with different services, and I've found shockingly that people are amazingly appreciative when I just thank them for helping me, right? Because they are like genuinely trying to help me, even if it feels like we're going nowhere, you know? If you're not getting the resolution that you need, you can ask to speak to somebody else, but there is no reason to choose someone out on the phone. You know what I mean? So you can just say, thanks so much for your help. I really appreciate it. And 9 times out of 10, you will get the resolution that you're looking for from that very person. Because imagine all the people that they're dealing with day to day who are just expecting all of this stuff from them and never appreciating anything that they give, you know? So I had this one person, I think with Comcast, and I was just like, we had our fence replaced, our fence people severed our internet cable, annoying, but whatever. I called Comcast, I was like, hey, I just needed to get someone out here to come fix this up. And the person is working with me. I said, just thank you so much for your help. I really appreciate it. And this person went on like a little bit of a tangent, like, thank you so much. Like, you are the only person to thank me today. I really appreciate your kindness. Let me see if I can get you in even sooner. So that gratitude, and while I didn't do it to get in any sooner, I was fine with waiting. That kindness and that gratitude toward that other person kind of inspired them to help you. And it's kind of like the butterfly effect, you know? Like little actions and little phrases can really change someone's day and change the trajectory of your life potentially. So definitely something to think about. My third point on how to stay grateful is to focus outward and not inward. I find that when I am the most stressed or the most upset, it's because I am focusing only on myself and the things that I have to do. And I'm not focusing on how I'm helping others. So I think that, especially in this age of social media, we kind of have this idea that we have to present a certain image and it's all about us and the amount of likes that we personally get. And I just think that if we focus more on helping other people, then we can truly be happier individuals because we're focusing on the collective instead of ourselves. I think if you're constantly searching for validation for yourself, I don't know that you're ever going to be as happy as you could be by just trying to give back to people in whatever way you can, right? And I'm not saying that you have to go on a mission to El Salvador or anything like that. You can do that if that's your thing. If you're involved in the church, go for it. But even just you're having a bad day, right? And you're out walking and your old neighbor wants you to stop and talk. Instead of just kind of brushing them off, saying, hey, I gotta go, why don't you just stop and talk to them? You know, imagine that this particular person is lonely, right? Maybe they just want someone to talk to. Just talk to them for 5 minutes. And they might not say, oh my gosh, thank you so much and whatever, but they clearly stopped you to talk for a reason, you know? It's okay to just look outside yourself for a second and give back to someone who might not have something to offer you in return. My fourth point on staying grateful is to just change your perspective. I like to try, I'm not always successful, but I like to try to look at things happening for me instead of to me. I'll explain. So let's say that you apply for a job that you really, really want. And you know you would be amazing at this job. You would be a great addition to the company. You think that you would fit right in the culture. You think that your goals and your values for your career line up with this company, and you really see yourself there. But maybe you don't get the job. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened to me. This is the only job that I wanted, and now I just have to go back to the drawing board. Imagine instead that there's something better coming for you, and this was not right for you right now. Okay? I look back on my life sometimes, and I had some traumatic experiences when I was younger, and during more depressed periods of my life, I've looked at it like, I can't believe this is happening to me. You know, like, why is this happening to me? What have I done? Like, I haven't done anything wrong for this to be happening to me. But looking back on my life and looking where I am now, I am living a life that I love, right? I am living with a man that adores me and that I adore, and that I can just like literally be my weirdest, quirkiest self with. I have an awesome dog that is everything I could have dreamed for. I'm a writer, which was my dream job since I was 9. I have a podcast that people listen to, which is so still crazy to me. And all of these things are kind of like the life that I dreamed for myself when I was a kid. But when I was a kid, it did not look like these things were happening for me. It looked like my life was working against me. And to be just very like dark and honest with you, I felt like I wouldn't even reach this point in my life, like physically. I thought that I would not even get to age 28 years old because of the way that my life was going. I thought for sure, with all the trauma and the abuse and whatever, like, my life certainly is not going to end up how I want it to. But ironically, those horrible things that happened to me when I was younger were actually happening for me to become the person that I am today. I think that I am far more empathetic than I would have been if my life was just like butterflies and rainbows growing up. I think that I am a very hard worker and like a go-getter and very determined because I did not have things even presented to me, let alone handed to me. You know what I mean? So I look back on my life and I'm kind of sad that those things had to happen, but I am so happy and frankly, I'm very proud of how my life has turned out thus far. And when little things do happen that I'm like, oh my gosh, why is this happening? Eventually, there will always be like a reason behind it. And maybe I don't see it in the moment, but that doesn't mean that it's not there. So for you, try to change your perspective. Maybe you're going through a really tough period in your life right now. Imagine that these things are happening for a future self of yours. They're happening for you instead of to you. They are serving you and helping you to become the person that you're meant to be. My fifth point, stop worrying about the past. It already happened. It might have been terrible, might have been amazing. Don't look back on your life or past events like, I can't believe that happened, or I wish that was happening now. I also would caution against worrying about the future. I think it's great to be excited about the future and to plan for your future and to try to build the future that you want to live in. But worrying about the future and putting a more pessimistic turn on it, like I personally am want to do, is not going to benefit you in any way at all. In staying present in this moment, I think really helps you appreciate what you currently have, not what you wish you had or what you had in the past. I think that this is true for like material things. I think that this is true for relationships. And I think that this is true for who you are as a person. I don't want to wish that my life was like it was before, because I should always be growing. Maybe I look back and I'm not really happy with it. Like, okay, what can I do today that is going to change my life for the better and make this a life that I want to live? And what do I have now, right now, today, that I should be grateful for, that I'm not? Even if the thing that you have today is an apartment, right? Maybe you hate that apartment. Maybe it sucks. Maybe your neighbors are loud. And maybe, I don't know, people dented your car or something in the parking lot. There are people who would kill to be in your position, to be in a crappy apartment, right? There are people without homes, right? No roof over their head, no air conditioning, no heat. If you have a job, that's a great thing, even if you hate the job. That is a great thing that you need to appreciate. Stay present in your life and realize that a lot of these things that I feel like we're conditioned to hate, like our job or our house or whatever, realize that those are amazing, amazing things. Things that others would kill for. And frankly, even if no one else wants it, it is still good for you. It is enabling you to live your life. So try to stay where you are. Don't try to go anywhere else. Don't try to be anybody else, because there's only one you, and that is your superpower, or so I'm told. As we wrap up, I do want to say that I truly understand that the holidays can really be a tough time. And these 5 points are not necessarily going to change your life overnight. But as we move into Thanksgiving and then after that, Christmas and Hanukkah, if you celebrate Hanukkah or whatever you celebrate in the months of November and December, as we move into that, I do encourage you to write down 3 things that you're grateful for every day. And they can be as arbitrary as you want. Maybe you're grateful for your dog, or you're grateful for an Amazon package or a package that's coming, or maybe you're grateful for having cell phone service. I'll tell you, I've been without cell service. It's a pain in today's day and age. Like whatever it is, if you read a great book, be grateful for that story. Like whatever it is that is bringing you joy that day, write those 3 things down. And I bet you that as you're writing them down, you might think of more than 3 things. And you might realize that you have a lot more in your life to be grateful for than you think you do. I bet you that that's the case. I know that that's the case for me. And I know that it's easy to forget. We live in an age of comparison. We live in an age where you get on Instagram and you see people posting about their new car, their new house, or the vacation that they're going on, or during this time period, maybe a gathering with their family, and you see all these things that these other people have that maybe you don't have or you can't have for whatever reason. Try to, again, change your perspective, and instead of comparing yourself to others, what do you have that you can be happy for? And I 100% guarantee you that if you are listening to my voice, my terrible voice right now, I can tell you that you have at least 3 things to be grateful for. So think about that as we move into Thanksgiving. I hope you have an amazing holiday if you're celebrating by yourself or with family, or if you're not celebrating. I still hope you have an awesome Thursday this coming Thanksgiving Thursday in the US. And on that note, we are about at the end of our time together, and my voice is about at the end of its capacity to do this. So if you want to follow the podcast, you can follow it on Twitter and Instagram at You're So Quiet Pod, YOURE, So Quiet Pod. You can follow me on Facebook and Twitter at Write C Brown, WRITE C Brown. If you have not already, you can subscribe to the podcast YouTube channel. You can also subscribe on any platform that you listen to podcasts. And of course, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to support your favorite introvert. Okay, love you.